Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. A while ago on Twitter, I teased something called the Unlisted Vid, which was me uh, live cringing while reading a kind of cheesy Christian comic. And I meant what I said. I'm never going to take that video off of Unlisted. It is some great humorous cringe if that's the kind of thing that you find amusing. But it's also kind of an embarrassing performance. So I'm cringing at the comic, and my performance is also somewhat cringy. But this is the same magazine, Focus on the Family Clubhouse, February 2018, and this is a magazine I get for free by signing up to listen to the Adventures in Odyssey radio show online, which I think is even better than VeggieTales, where VeggieTales has this reputation for being the Christian children's show that adults like and even atheists can kind of fondly remember for its quality. And I figured VeggieTales is okay, but Adventures in Odyssey is a really decent program with, good characters. The characters grow and change over time. They root their comedy in the voice actors, very capable delivery. All your iconic voice actors from childhood in Disney have cameoed on Adventures in Odyssey at some point. They put a lot of effort into that radio program, and it shows. But the Clubhouse magazine, sometimes I'm moaning a little bit at how cheesy some of this stuff is. But this is a great example of finding something where you can flip through it and find a few different artist styles and then make a mental note of how these artists are approaching. So I thought it'd be fun to do that. I don't think I'll make this a regular thing, since it would just be me cringing at the Christian comic every issue. Oh, they also do little, really, really brief video game reviews that are more for parents to caution them about what content's in the game. But I don't think it'd be fun for me to just cringe and make the same points once a month, but I think just this once, looking at this issue to talk about the few different styles is interesting. So Gary Locke is the new main artist they have for Adventures in Odyssey, and he's a political cartoonist. If you check him out, he's got some pro-Trump political cartoons. And the thing about his style is, unfortunately, I think he draws kids the same way he draws funny political cartoons, where he's exaggerating and kind of pushing it for comedic effect. And that works for political cartoons where you're making Trump's hair look goofy, or you're making Hillary Clinton work like a robot. But when he's drawing little kids in sort of slice of life scenes, it still has that same flavor of kind of cheesecakey, I don't know, front cover of National Review or Weekly Standard type of political cartooning. And I prefer something a little bit more down to earth for what's essentially a slice of life comedy. So sometimes they'll have sort of that kind of goofy, cheesy grin on them. So I'm saying Gary Locke's okay, and he's good as a political cartoonist, but I don't think his style blends well for that subject matter. Dennis Jones is a fabulous cartoonist, and this guy has been. There's a good chance if you grew up in sort of Bible Belt country, there's a good chance you were given children's books with Gary Locke illustrations on them. He has a very unique cartoony animal style of drawing, where he cartoons it, but he adds a little bit of realistic painting on top of it and actually makes the blend work, I think. So, what have you seen him done? Probably he did the very famous NIV children's Bible from the 90s that almost everyone had. They adapted that into Windows 95 PC games. He's done a bunch of children's book with Arch Press, the major Lutheran Christian children's book press, and he always makes his characters come across as having big over the top happy emotions, big over the top sad emotions. He's a great children's book illustrator, and I've never seen anyone illustrate quite like he does. I really dig these frogs. Keck, guys. Keck Wilson. Oh, not appropriate joke for a Focus on the Family mag. Okay, so when I first read this, I thought this was Gary Locke again, but no, it's Gary Lacoste. And I actually like this style a lot better. This is sort of a generic Cartoon Network-y, not recent Cartoon Network. Recent Cartoon Network, all the characters have kind of blended almost into sort of this single Adventure Time-y style. Adventure Time has influenced all the cartoons which has come out recently. Old Cartoon Network style, I'd call that basic, simple shapes and simple ideas. So, the cat's got a, what do you call that? Where it's short on the top and long on the. It's a trapezoid. It's a trapezoid with a curve added to it to evoke whiskers. The giraffe, rectangle, kind of a cone in a cone shape for a triangle, half circles for ears. Everything is being reduced into simple shapes and ideas. And I'm sure that maybe something like Adobe Illustrator is being used for this, but there's still some life because whether it's digital or traditional, I'm sure there's some underdrawing being done to figure out the forms. Because look at this. This guy, he's got a long, exaggerated neck, but he's curving back. And these two girls who don't like how gross he is, they're kind of leaning forward and hunching their shoulders and looking askance at him. So there's a tendency, I think, in some Illustrator drawings to come off as stiff and just too perfect. They're too clean. They're too nice. And I think the cure to that is to still have underdrawing, so you can get the feel for the body and how it moves. And then you come in with Illustrator to clean it all up. So Gary LaCosta wins my award, I think, for new artists who I'm really interested in now that I've gotten a chance to look at their style. I do not like this style. This one is by David Harrington, and it's for like a series of kids devotionals that Focus on the Family puts out. It's called like Super Average Kids Devotionals and Adventures of Average Boy, and I think he always comes across looking like Squirrel Girl, where he's got this big doofy grin on him. And it's that similar kind of school of thought of caricature, not cartooning. Caricature artists exaggerate features of the human face for comedic effect, where it's not necessarily pretty. Chuck Jones used to say every time he drew a caricature, he lost a friend, because he's emphasizing facial features of his friends that they may not be that proud of. If his friends had a big nose, he's emphasizing their big nose. If they have a buck teeth, you emphasize their big buck teeth. Caricature drawing, I think it's very funny, but it's not very appealing. So in the context of stories, I don't know. It has a little bit of an off-putting effect, which I don't. The thing is, these are just sort of generic stories about a kid, having sort of daily, moral problems for 10-year-olds kind of stories. So I like this this feels more like Mad Magazine style of humor. Like there should be some potty humor with this sort of off-putting kind of drawing. But I don't know. I don't hate it, but it doesn't work for me, I guess. This really does work for me. This is by, let's find the artist name again. Where'd they go? I know I saw it. But this is all watercolor illustration. There we go. This is by Graham Fleming. Graham Fleming, so a very simple ink illustration. And then what I love about this watercolor is maybe 2 or 3 shades of paint blend together for effects. So this is all a blue wash. This is a red wash, probably on top of the blue wash, and then it mixes together down here to get a range of purples. So it's a range of colors, but ultimately it's just 2 layers of paint being used. So because watercolor is watery and transparent, you can get a million colors using 2 or 3 colors, which gives you this best of both worlds of having a simple color palette, but still a range of colors within your composition. So this is just like a little... what would probably have been the order? Probably yellow first, because you're supposed to start with the lightest color, then red on top of that, and then blue up here, but really got watery down here. So it came to blue gray and blue purple to make this cloud effect. And I love how all the little people are doing something. There's sort of a Where's Waldo vibe to it, where you look around and you keep noticing little things. That's fabulous. And it's not exactly realistic. What should be is like the person up on the mountain should be teeny tiny, and this person should be huge. There's a little bit of that. This guy's about as big as the first joint of my finger. This guy's smaller than my fingernail. So there is a little bit of perspective. People farther away are smaller, people closer are bigger. But it's not realistic, because you're supposed to be able to look at everything and appreciate everything. So it's flattening the space for the purpose of making a better Where's Waldo experience. And I love this Yeti having hot cocoa with everyone. So definitely Graham Fleming. Yep, maximum respect for using tools simply. Then I've already looked at those artists, already looked at them. A lot of cheesy photos and iStock photography, more Gary Locke. Here we go. All right, so this is what inspired me to start doing cringe videos, and it gets worse. I've skipped around and missed a few of these, but let's just read it, guys. Here we go. So poor Kelvin, he's been trying to tell Nick Splat and this alien race about Jesus, and now he's on trial for it. And he's being accused. He's in front of Judge, and Chief has accused Kelvin of trying to steal from them and perform a faith healing, I guess. So hey, look at this, Marvel Comics. Without wasting 2 pages on a title page, Degrees of Kelvin, the Focus on the Family comic, has communicated to me a recap in dialogue in a couple panels. I already said this in the Forever Unlisted video, but I hate this design for the aliens. It's completely Uncanny Valley. So the judge notices that even though they've accused Kelvin of stealing, they still have their stuff. And even though the chief accuses Kelvin of doing a faith healing, the chief seems to be in good shape. And Kelvin says, well, it wasn't me. The God of the universe healed him. I don't like having, for Christian writers, I don't like having miracles put into fictional stories because it's almost literally a deus ex machina. If you want to tell a story about God, it feels cheap to me to just have God miraculously heal someone and then everybody believes in the middle of your fictional story. I do believe that God heals people. I do believe that miracles exist, but in the context of fiction, that feels like it's using God as a cheap narrative element within your story, rather than letting faith in God be a natural part of the story, where some people are never going to believe. Some people are always going to be atheists, and that's sad, but you don't just magically fix that in 10 minutes by having... That was my same problem with God's Not Dead. It ends with the atheist essentially getting run over and having a deathbed conversion experience. It doesn't feel like real life. In real life, some people are always gonna reject it. You have to deal with these sort of sad consequences of life. So then they literally rip off the Apostle Paul and the unknown God dialogue that he had. So Judge says, which God do you mean? We worship many, even a mighty unknown God that we've never seen. I love these gods. Hold on, let's look at this. That looks like Cthulhu. That's Octago or something. And the Great Elder and the Foul God, he's chicken. And they just leave a blank space for the unknown God. And then I don't know who this was supposed to be. So the unknown God is this great segment where Paul is disputing with Greek polytheists, and they have a place to worship the unknown God, the God they've never known. And Paul uses this brilliantly. It's this brilliant rhetorical tactic where he says, well, I know the one unknown God, and the unknown God is the creator God. The unknown God is the true God. So Paul is taking the culture of the polytheists, he is paying attention to the culture of the polytheists, and he is connecting with them on a personal level to articulate a brand new idea to them, monotheism. I don't care if you're an atheist. How Paul used the unknown God is a brilliant rhetorical strategy, and I don't like seeing it being used so ham-fistedly here. So Kelvin pretty much rips off Paul's unknown God. The unknown God you worship is who I serve. And then Laney gets nervous. Kelvin, you really think you should disrespect their traditions? And this cat, it's got like one bug eye. I am sensing the sudden need to run it. Oh, man. And so then Judge is really offended by this and says that Kelvin needs to go to the deepest dungeon. And Kelvin, being a good, heroic Christian role model, in a Focus on the Family comic, he's ready to go to jail for God, and they've got our Bible verse on an iPad for us. And then Laney says, wait, I don't believe like him. I want a deal. Kelvin, Laney, what are you doing? Laney, I like God and all. I'm not ready to rot in prison for him. Oh, Laney. Oh, Laney. Fluffnark, what have I done? Look at this. Oh, God. I forgot how bad this color was. Oh, man. So, yeah. Clubhouse Magazine, I don't know if you can get this. I don't know. I feel like that cringe was enough. That not maybe not as good as Splatto del Gato for me, but I don't know. This is almost Splatto del Gato level cringe, guys, but still better than SJW Marvel, because at the very least, this wasn't a fantasy about watching Kelvin punch some atheist aliens. Am I right? At the very least, at the very least, Focus on the Family Comics gets that you don't fantasize about punching people you don't like. So good on you, Focus on the Family. You are slightly less cringy than Spider-Gwen number 23 and The Amazing Squirrel Girl. And by the way, I gotta cover up my name. They are doing a bit where you can send in stories and art to them for an issue that's going to be entirely kids art. So sorry, my fellow adult comics fans, this one's not for you. But if you know any youngsters, I mean, some of these stories you might actually. I do not know if you have to be a subscriber to the magazine to submit. They just give out the address. But boy, if you think you can tell a better Degrees of Kelvin, let's pray for Nick's Blatt story. You could draw a comic about it and send that in. And it's not quite April Fool's Day, but you have to send it in by April 2nd, the day after April Fool's Day. And I would be over the moon if any of you fellows out there in Comicsgate have youngsters who are relatives or youngsters who are friends who would be interested in submitting to this. So they ask for stories. If I were you, I'd send drawings and I think 3-panel comic strips. So I'm just going to focus on the instructions for how to enter. Mail your entries to Members Mag, Clubhouse Magazine, 8605 Explorer Drive, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80920, and there's their Canadian address. So if you convince any youngsters to enter some art into this, let me know, because I'm going to be looking for that issue, because the issue where the kids draw stuff is my favorite issue every year, and I can't wait to get it. I love you guys. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I am never going to list the unlisted vid. So if you really want to join Club Unlisted, hit me up at Twitter at @NO1 Marmaduke fan, and I'll catch you later.